tool where we can create different sonic experiences, but it's not necessarily going to destroy creativity. I believe people who think that actually need to get a little more competitive edge to be able to stay relevant in an industry that is constantly changing. AI is something it's new. This has been around for 10+ years. It's only slowly starting to infiltrate consumer circles. So whether it's your banking or whether it's how your mobile phone app works, AI is going to run for a long time. I have one right now that actually doesn't know how to navigate unless they have done anything from research on it.
So there is music that you can consider in the background in a lift or in a shop or somewhere where the AI stuff would work. And you know that people have made money from that, crediting it.
Yes, so you can make money with AI generated content as well. I personally believe that the artist should be credited, the artist should be able to create some kind of cash flow, so if like these things need to be developed. You've already seen artists like Elton John trying to push forward legislation around AI, so artists are getting taken advantage of. But in the meantime, I think this is a new gold rush where people are quickly capitalizing on it, with quite a few bands.
Ariana O'Dell is a musical teacher and it's this is very much your lane to Clara in Toronto. Does it matter? I don't mean we can't invent the technology, but we want to. And in this particular regard, where AI can create a whole a band and generate endless content that band may have come up with without any humans.
I think on the surface, many people will feel that this is not important. It's in no way a competition to the real artists that we love and we go to see and hear from in person. But I think if you dig deeper, it's a sign of more problems to come down the road. I mean, why would a music label sign the next Sabrina Carpenter when they can simply create her? It's going to make it that much harder for indie musicians without a lot of money and backing it. Major labels to ever make it. And the thing that really bothers me is that there has always been this tension between artists and labels about how to compensate artists for their work. I think this is going to it's going to make that conversation much trickier and a little bit harder for those who are coming up to be compensated. And this is not the first time this conversation is had. I remember reporting on this back in 2022 when there was a label that created dozens and dozens of fake artists. I do wonder what it means for the next generation who want to live off of their artistic talent and can't do that because the space is so crowded with AI content.
I'm thinking this goes like much further than that. I was thinking about the 1980s when there was a whole kind of slew of artists who weren't their background wasn't as an up-and-coming musician. They were often TV stars that labels owned and turned into pop stars. It's just the same kind of concept, and yet 40 years later, the music's alive and well, though, isn't it? There is Sabrina Carpenter's doing okay.
I do think, though, that at least there was a human being behind that music, even if they were augmented, their voices were augmented with technology, there was still a human being that was performing, and that was at least the face of this. We're entering a space where it's now an algorithm, and the ability to recreate a digital avatar of a musician. It's slightly more dystopian, I would say.
Peter, what do you think? Are you worried that there's now an AI band hundreds of thousands of people are enjoying?
I find it very disturbing. I think there needs to be more controls, regulation over disclosure and transparency, so listeners and viewers know exactly what they're getting, especially these days when you might be sent a photo, whether that's on a social media platform, and you're immediately asked if you want to adjust that with AI. I was disappointed when I heard Paul McCartney
Thank you so much to both of you for being with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Peter in Sydney, to Cara in Toronto. Most importantly, thanks to you for being there. This is Matt's back next week here on the BBC World Service. From the and from each of the team, have a great weekend.
This is the BBC World Service and a huge change this week. Food in video games doesn't just give a player energy, it's designed to make you hungry, to disgust you, or to make you think. Primary thoughts are about finding out about something as delicious, disturbing, fantasy dishes without. The Food Chain at bbcworldservice.com/foodchain.
South African bowler Vernon Fernanda gives us insight into the toll being a fast bowler takes on the body. He also shares his thoughts about India and managing Jasmine Bluegrass fitness and Chopra Archer's return to the England test.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station. It's one of the GMT newsroom from BBC World Service and Julia Before. President Trump speaks to the leaders of both Russia and Ukraine. The war continues to intensify. The special report from the front lines. Hamas negotiators say they've sent a positive response to a U.S.-broken Gaza ceasefire. In Texas, fears for nearly 24 missing girls at summer camp as flash floods tear through the state. And how many hot dogs could you eat in 10 minutes?
It's electric. Dogs are great. I'll have some time to be here. I had 16 shows each grade, so it was nice to get back in the 70s. I feel like it's definitely I can improve.
How else could one possibly celebrate Independence Day? Iconic annual public contest in New York. But first, latest BBC World News. This is Danielle Yao-Vincent with the BBC News Hello. Frantic searches are underway in the West State of Texas after flash floods killed at least 13 people. The Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said more than 20 girls at a summer camp were still unaccounted for. Heavy rain has set off deadly flooding on the Guadalupe River. A reporter from CBS News, Jason Allen, gave us a good description of the scene.
Where we are standing, this was all underwater early this morning. This rose in just a few hours, and in fact, the last burst 45 minutes. This was an RV park, one of the few that are located here along the river. This was a holiday weekend on 4th of July. There were also dozens and dozens of small cabins that people were staying in for the holiday. And all of those structures, all of those RVs are now gone.
Hamas says it submitted a positive response to mediators over a Gaza ceasefire proposal, but hasn't confirmed whether it will accept the terms. The senior Palestinian official told the BBC that Hamas had asked for changes. Tony Wells speaks in Jerusalem.
Hamas has said that it wants a guarantee from the US that hostilities will not continue if a permanent agreement isn't reached at the end of this ceasefire. So essentially this is a message from Hamas to the US, to President Donald Trump, that it wants a guarantee that this war will end. If it gets that guarantee, then it seems to be suggesting that this ceasefire proposal is something that it could accept.
On Monday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is due to come to Washington with President Trump. Mr. Trump has signed his flagship package of tax subsidy legislative law at a ceremony that coincides with Independence Day celebrations. Speaking from the White House balcony, he thanked America was winning like never before, and people wouldn't even notice the spending cuts.
Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, everybody's going to die. Actually, just the opposite. Everybody's going to live. This is just the opposite. And I just want you to know, if you see anything negative put out by Democrats, it's all a con. Compared it to just like the insurrection.
Largely areas, slashing support for the less well-off. Poland's biggest river, the Vistula, has 4 Danube are affecting shipping, agriculture and ecosystems. You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. The Bosnian authorities have dropped an arrest warrant against the Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik, who's accused of attacking the constitutional order. After months of ignoring demands, he voluntarily reported to the public prosecutor's office on Friday. A joint statement said the court accepted a proposal to terminate the warrant, granting him conditional release. A former El Salvadoran defense minister and 2 retired colonels have been sentenced to 60 years in jail each for the murder of 4 Dutch journalists in 1982. A court ruled that came after a night of what appeared to be the biggest Russian drone and missile attack of the war so far. But despite President Trump expressing his disappointment with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, he's not yet publicly committed to restart supplies of US weapons and air defense systems. Meanwhile, the fighting continues on the battlefield. Russia claims to have captured around 10 villages in the border region of Sumy in northeastern Ukraine. Among its key weapons are low-cost, long-range Shahed drones. Our senior international correspondent Ola Guerin joined some of those defending Sumy.
Just in front of me, Ukrainian troops are reloading a heavy caliber machine gun on the back of a pickup truck. These troops are in the Sumy region. We can't say exactly where, but they're on the lookout for drones coming from Russia, including Shahed drones. Before the invasion, one was a farmer and one was a forest ranger. He now goes by the call sign of Jaeger. What's the feeling for you and for your team when you see the drones getting through?
It's not very good. To be honest, you don't have time for emotions. One comes in and the mother can come right behind it. For more than a year already. Every day it's like one.
We just arrived in the city of Sumy, and a moment ago the air raid sirens started going off again. It's a very familiar sound here. For some here, the war has already taken far too much. I'm sitting with Margarita Kuzakova. Her arm is broken. There are metal bars sticking out, trying to stabilize the bones. She was traveling in a minibus with other family members, a group of civilians. They were heading for Sumy, and they were attacked by a Russian drone. In an instant, she lost her mother, her sister, and her uncle.
I opened my eyes and there was nothing left of the bus. The driver pulled me up and I was lying on the grass. Many people died there. What I saw was terrible. I don't even want to remember all of it.
We've just finished speaking to Margarita, and the air raid siren has gone off again. This is an everyday thing here now. Like the sound of explosions, like the fear that many people have that the Russians are getting closer. I'm just making my way down the hillside in a very remote area. We're surrounded by trees here, providing some protection. We're on our way to a training ground for Ukrainian forces. I'm with one of the soldiers here. His call sign is student. He's been in the war since his very first day. How would you try to describe to somebody who's off in Ukraine what these years that they're going through?
A constant smell of blood, dirt, and sweat. That's all.
He joined our unit as a platoon of 30 neighbors. Today, only 4 of us are still alive. We've lost so many.
How long do you think the war
Even if it ends in 6 months, it will start again in 4 or 5 years.
Ukrainian soldier ending that report by Ola Garin in Sumy. Well, alongside the mass deployment of Shahid drones, the Russians are also accused of deploying banned chemical weapons on the front lines in Ukraine. That's according to the Dutch and German intelligence services. The Dutch defense minister said Moscow was using the substances systematically and on a large scale, and called for tougher sanctions. Russia has signed the Chemical Weapons Convention, but the European intelligence services say the choking agent, chlorpicrin, has been used to force Ukrainian soldiers out of their shelters so that they can be attacked with conventional arms. Russia has previously denied using chemical weapons in the war and has not responded to BBC's requests in this report. Hamish de Bretton-Gordon, former commander of the UK's Joint Chemical, Biological, Radiological and Nuclear Regiment, told us about chlorpicrin and its effects.
Chlorpicrin was the first chemical weapon developed in the First World War. It is a type of chemical weapon called a choking agent, and if you breathe it in, it works with the fluid in your lungs and basically makes you choke. It also is an irritant to anywhere that you have fluid in your body, like your eyes or your mouth. Incredibly painful. It is non-persistent, which means that it only lasts about 5 or 10 minutes, but it's incredibly unpleasant. It doesn't necessarily kill people unless they have underlying health conditions, but you have to move. You can't hang around if this stuff is thrown. First of all, they have huge artillery barrages to basically get the Ukrainian troops into their foxholes and into their trenches. Then these little sort of $500 drones drop grenades holding chlorpicrin into the trenches. This spreads throughout the trench, and most of the Ukraine soldiers don't have respirators or gas masks. Therefore, they've had to get out of the trench to get away from this stuff, and the Russians follow up with artillery fire and direct fire. Obviously, those soldiers who do have respirators, they can overcome this. It's been incredibly effective. I don't think I'm overplaying it by saying most of the advances they've made, particularly in the Donbass area, have been significantly enabled by this use of this chemical weapon. And it might sound morbidly horrific, but that is what chemical weapons were designed for in the First World War, and it's illegal under the Chemical Weapons Convention, and of course it's a war crime.
Hamish de Bretton-Gordon. You're listening to the newsroom from the BBC World Service. Let's turn to the US now. 14 helicopters, 12 drones, and 9 rescue teams are desperately searching for survivors in central Texas following heavy rains and severe flooding. Dan Patrick is the acting state governor.
It's a very tough day in Texas. The rain came down 12 inches per hour. That river rose 26 feet in 45 minutes. And it was a destructive flood, taking property and sadly lives.
At least 13 people have been killed and many are missing throughout Texas Hill Country, including around 20 girls from a summer camp that lies on the banks of the Guadalupe River. This man is searching for his parents.
We're desperately seeking him. We haven't seen him since 4:55 this morning. I called him and just said, hey, you got to get up. It's flooding down there. And 6 minutes later, they were gone. That was it. My brother came out to check on the and I was just letting him down.